Okay, hello everybody. How you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. Starting at exactly 11 o'clock today. I am very, very happy with myself. So, let's go ahead and get this going. Let me just make sure that I can hear myself and everything's cool before we jump into it proper, because no matter how many times I think I have it all set up and everything like that, seems like every week there it goes. There's always some kind of weird technical glitch that I'm dealing with. I don't know. I think what I need is just a whole new setup. I need a whole new computer with like all new equipment. Because the stuff I'm using is like somewhat inadequate, but that's okay. That's okay. So, this week's stream is about misinformation. Um, in particular, about misinformation regarding the pandemic, because unfortunately, it's still happening. And even though things have gotten a lot better, overall, the number of deaths, for example, have gone down and that kind of thing. It is still very much a very, very big part of our lives. And there are still thousands of people a day dying in this country alone, let alone the entire world. So, you know, stuff that we still got to deal with, right? As much as we would like this to go away, it doesn't seem to be going away. And part of the reason why it hasn't been going away is because we're seemingly dealing with just an entire segment of the population who doesn't want to face reality. That's what's going on. Basically, we have an entire port, um, you know, roughly 30% or so of the population that is just in denial and doesn't want to face reality that the world is a dangerous place, and they just refuse to get on board with the common sense, measures that the rest of us are taking in order to stop this. And that's essentially what's happening here, right? So the thing is that we've been doing this for, we've been living this reality for, God, it's going to be 2 years coming up pretty soon. I mean, it's already October, right? In December of this year, it'll be 2 years since this whole thing started. And so you would think by now everybody would be on the same page. We would know what's going on. You think by now people would have, you know, gotten the right information, right? Because there's always people out there that don't pay attention to the news and whatnot. There's people out there that just don't care. They have things to do. They have to work and they take care of their families, blah 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 blah, and they don't really pay attention to the news. And they don't, the way they get their news is through Facebook or through their best friends, or maybe they just sort of glance at the cover of the USA Today when they're in the grocery store or something like that, right? And they're just not very active. Not just politically inactive, but just not very active at all when it comes to, keeping up with current events, right? And in environments like that, and there's a very large part of the population that's like that. And I know that's kind of hard to understand, especially if you're a pop culture news junkie like me. If you're somebody who spends a large amount of time on the internet reading about stuff and just things in general, and researching things and shit like that, and keeping up with what's happening and that kind of thing, it can be kind of hard to understand that a lot of people don't do that. Seems to be to me that that number has decreased in the last couple of decades. It used to be really bad. And the internet, having all of your information readily available for you at the click of a button actually has made it somewhat easier to spread around the right information. This is something from my own observation over the last 20 years or so, you know. But there is still very much a large number of the population out there that just doesn't pay attention to shit like this at all. You know, these are basically undecideds. Whenever you get an election that comes around and there's the undecided voters, right? These are the people that just don't pay attention and they think one person is as good as the other. They're the ones that don't research. For example, a politician's stances or you know take a look at their background, see how they voted on stuff. They don't really care about that. They just sort of go with whatever their friends say or whatever their spouses say or how they've always voted, that kind of thing. Those types of people. Those are the people that don't really pay attention to the news. Not really until maybe they'll see it somewhere. Maybe a friend will bring it up in a conversation, shit like that. Right. And so you would think by this point, even those people, even the people that have just kind of ignored everything that's going on, would know, right, how to avoid, for example, catching the Rona and dying. You would understand. You would think that people would say, okay, well, we've been wearing masks for a year. We've been socially distancing for a year. We've been you know, doing all of these different things in order to prevent catching this disease. You would think that even with like, such people that just don't pay attention, the news of this kind of stuff would have disseminated by now. And after 2 years, you would think that there wouldn't be much of a, um, you know, risk of phony baloney information getting out there. And you would be wrong because, you know, the main reason why is because the conservatives in this country have politicized the pandemic, right? And it took a little while for it to happen. It took about, I don't know, yeah, a few months after, after it all started happening, right? Because at the very beginning, if you remember way back in December, December, January, February of 2020, right? Before it really hit that hard, you know, and before people started wearing masks and that kind of thing, there was a lot of like fear, but everybody was generally kind of on board with like, okay, we can handle this if we all just, kind of do our thing. And then like the lockdowns started, when the lockdowns first started, people were annoyed, but they were like, okay, it'll just last a little while, maybe a couple of months, maybe a couple of weeks, actually. That was the beginning. At the very beginning, we were like, oh, this will just be 2 weeks. And it just kept going and going and going. People started getting pissed, and it really didn't become politicized until everybody realized that this was the real deal, that this wasn't just another, SARS scare. Or, if you remember the Ebola scare from a few years ago, or, you know, um, that kind of thing, right? Because every couple of years we would get these sort of pandemic scares that would never, bird flu or some shit like that. And yeah, maybe it would kill something like, 40,000 people or some shit. But in the wider context, that's not really much more than the average flu kills, right? And people would just not be afraid. Well, it wasn't until we kind of realized that this is the real thing. This could potentially result in the deaths of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, which it actually has. We forget that worldwide, roughly somewhere around 4.5 million people have been killed worldwide because of this. And it's just in the United States where that number is, over 700,000. In real life, it's actually probably more. That's the thing, is that it's probably been underreported in not just this country. It for sure has been underreported in the United States. Let's keep that all in mind. More people than 700,000 people have died because of the coronavirus in the United States. That's just the truth. It's just we don't really know, and it's going to be one of those things where it's just an estimate. We're going to have to estimate. Well, it's probably more than a million at this point, but also worldwide. Worldwide, there was these the death numbers in places like Russia, in China for sure, right, are far, far underreported in India, because they don't actually know. Some of these countries just don't have adequate reporting capability, you know. India, there's a lot of isolated villages and stuff like that in India and in Africa and in, places like that, Southeast Asia, right? Lots of those places just have, very, it's hard to get actual accurate counts because the infrastructure doesn't exist, right? Another thing is that places like Russia, for example, we know they're underreporting their numbers as well, right? Brazil, for sure, is underreporting their numbers, you know, and so they don't look bad. The Philippines, right, underreporting their COVID numbers, you know. So it could be, I mean, Brazil has the second highest body count from instead of the United States, something like 600,000 people. It could well be over a million people from Brazil as well. And it could be, the same in the Philippines and the same in Russia. We have no idea how many people have actually caught this and died in Russia, right? Because it's like you can't trust the media in places like Russia, for example. You know, so we're never gonna know. It's just gonna be one of these things that you know, a decade from now when we're looking back and you're trying to like little kids are writing book reports and stuff, about the great pandemic, right? And we're not gonna, it's just gonna be an estimate. Some experts say up to X number of millions of people worldwide died from it. That's what it's gonna be. So, um, anyway, I wanted to start with a story that I saw here. Lewis the Hedgehog, thanks for joining, man. How you doing? And Shoma, what's happening, man? Good to see you today. Thanks, guys, for joining. So, I wanted to start with a story that I found really, really, really funny and disturbing. Here is a link, right? Let me just copy this link. And let's see here. No, don't open it. Just copy it. God damn it. I said copy. Fuck. All right, hang on. Sorry. Computer. Computers are like dogs. You have to treat them like dogs. You have to say nice things like good boy, good boy. And then when they're bad, you have to yell at them. Bad computer. My computer is acting bad. Anyway, here's a link that I found here. This is um, from, actually, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just open it. All right, fine. We'll just read this for a minute. I don't want to read it too much. GOP lawmaker links coronavirus vaccine to Satan, tentacle monsters, and 5G. So this is from Yahoo News, which is a cesspool of bad advertisements here. So I don't want to read too much. But let's just read a little bit of this because I found this hilarious and funny and disturbing. New Hampshire State Representative Ken Weiler, Republican, of course, is facing bipartisan criticism after he shared wild conspiracy theories about the coronavirus involving Satan, the Pope, and 5G, as well as tentacled creatures lurking in the COVID-19 vaccine. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, this guy is 79 years old. He is also not just this is in the state, New Hampshire state government, so he's not a federal, he's not in Congress, right? But he is spreading around this document that had all of this conspiracy theory bullshit in it. Claims that the vaccine is part of a plot to gain 100% control over the minds of all humanity. And then here's a quote here. We must understand that this criminal network is highly spiritual in nature, and all who are at the top are involved in dark, ancient spiritual practices. The report claims. To put it bluntly, they are Satanists, also called Luciferians. And then also, this part here claims that there is a little tentacled creature inside of the vaccine. So I won't read this whole thing for you, but it's hilarious if you get a chance to read it. So if you want to check that out. Also, some stuff about anti-Catholic bigotry. He also claimed this guy, well, in the report here, they also claimed that the Vatican is run by several different popes, and then one called the Gray Pope, who is like the he's like Emperor Palpatine of the popes, I guess. That's funny. Um, you kind of forget, like, how much like Catholic, like anti-Catholic bigotry there is out there in the country. Like, because people tend nowadays to tend to treat Catholics and evangelicals and Protestants all in the same boat, you know? Like, I don't know, but I guess it was more of a prevalent thing in the past to be anti-Catholic. Like, I'm actually supposed to be Catholic, supposed to be. I mean, I actually haven't really gone to like church or anything in like literally 25 years, right? But I've never in my life experienced like anti-Catholic bigotry myself. You know what I mean? And it's kind of hard to believe that it's still out there in some places in this country. Like, I don't know, that's kind of ridiculous. So yeah, so what is this guy talking about, right? Tentacled creatures inside the vaccine, because that's another thing in that article there. They're talking about how if examined under a microscope, there's like a little squid-like Cthulhu creature, right? That's floating around in the vaccine. Where is this coming from? Right. Um, as far as I can tell, right, because I did some Googles on this trying to see if I could find people talking about the vaccine tentacle beast, right? Unfortunately, couldn't find any pictures of it. That's too bad. But as far as I can tell, it's just another sort of permutation of the mark of the beast, kind of end times revelations kind of thing that Christians and conservative wacky Christians are always like, wetting their pants over. That has no basis in fucking reality, but is like, one of the core tenets of their religion there, right? And so that this basically, the mark of the beast is supposed to be supposed to be like, say, a tattoo or something like that, that you would get on your forehead or on your, you know what, that looks like shit. I'm not gonna, you know what I'm gonna do? Those pumpkins look horrible. Let's just ditch the pumpkins. And I think I might draw some pumpkins and scan them in and then color them like that. Because I was gonna put like pumpkins and shit in the background here, you know. But let's worry about that later, and let's just focus on this guy for now. Anyway, yeah, as far as I can tell, it's like, just another permutation of that, and instead of it being a tattoo, right, or some other things like that, some other people think it'll be like a sigil, like it'll be like this glowing spot on your forehead or some shit like that. And now it's just become it's become the vaccine. And the tentacled creature that lives in the vaccine apparently is actually a real demon. So, excuse me. It's kind of crazy the permutations that these things go through, right? Because if you remember last year, it was supposed to be a microchip, right? When everybody was losing their minds over the vaccine. It's supposed to be because Bill Gates was putting a microchip inside of the vaccine and stuff. And then now it's like they've just skipped that completely. Forget about the microchip. It's actually like an actual living demon creature, which is supposedly going to invade your mind or something, which nobody ever explains. Like, So there must be millions of these little demons, and then what happens when the vaccine expires? Does the demon die inside of it? Like, it doesn't make any, it doesn't, no, that's the thing about conspiracy theories is that they never make any sense when you like actually think about them for half a second. Right? Does that mean like if somebody gets a vaccine, can you exorcise it? Like, can they go get an exorcism and get rid of the demon? What happens to the vaccine then? Does it just not work after that? Like, can you catch COVID again if you get, an exorcism? Like, it's ridiculous, stupid, conservative, evangelical horseshit, which is being spread around on social media, even to the point where fucking politicians are reporting on this stuff like it's real. Now, for his part, right, because if you read a little bit into the article there, you know, um, they claimed, the Republicans in New Hampshire claimed that, well, this was a report that came from constituents. These are the things our constituents believe. So we don't believe this shit. It's just, this is what our people that vote for us believe. And so we're sharing it around because State Representative Ken Weiler is not just a, you know, average like state representative. He's actually the chair of the fucking New Hampshire House Fiscal Committee. So he's in charge of how the state spends money. And they were bringing this up because they were going to have a vote on what they were going to do with $29 million of federally funded you know, vaccine funds. And that's why he brought up this report, supposedly. And now they're trying to say, since they got humiliated and shit, now they're trying to say, oh, this is just what our constituents believe. And it's normal for us to bring up a report on the beliefs of our constituents before a vote like that, which is bullshit. Bullshit, and they're lying. Right. But there you go. See, there's the guy in charge of the committee that makes decisions on how they're going to spend resources and money in order to fight the pandemic, bringing up ridiculous conspiracy theory horseshit. Right. And if it didn't hit the news, how do you think they would have voted? They probably would have voted, at least he would have voted to vote this shit down, and $29 million dollars in federal funds would not get spent in New Hampshire, and that would directly result in people not getting vaccinated and then catching fucking COVID and dying. Right? That's my thing. And that's why, a perfect example right there of how misinformation can kill people. Right? Misinformation has basically misinformed, right, State Representative Ken Weiler from New Hampshire. His actions are going to directly result in the deaths of people who live in New Hampshire now because somebody out there is not going to be able to get vaccinated because the way this asshole decides not to spend, not to spend money on vaccinations. And that's what we're seeing now. This is why, after 2 years, there's still, roughly 2,000 people a day kicking the bucket from this pandemic, right? Just yesterday, there were 2,130 deaths just in the United States, right? There were 87,334 new cases just yesterday in the United States. So if anybody out there is thinking this is over with, that lockdown measures, we can like, you can stop, we can get rid of lockdown measures and you don't have to wear masks if you're vaccinated, blah, 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 right? If anybody out there thinks that, the numbers don't agree with you, right? The shit is very much not over with. And the reason it's not over with is because of conservatives. Let's not split hairs here. Let's not lie to ourselves about what the real problem is, right? The reason why it's because conservatives have politicized the pandemic, right? And it didn't take long. Like I said in the beginning, it was easy at the beginning before the lockdowns and stuff for everybody to agree. And basically, as soon as the slightest inconvenience for people started, right? It's like, oh, you have to wear masks when you go shopping or when you're at work. The smallest inconvenience, as soon as that happened, They just started losing their minds. And it went into overdrive after Trump lost the election, right? It went into complete fucking overdrive. And now, now you have mainstream, and in the beginning, like for example, Fox News and stuff, in the beginning of this, they were touting, one day we'll have a vaccine, right? Because it was a positive thing, because it was the Trump administration that funded the vaccines, right? And they saw that as a win for Donald Trump. And so they were like, yay, and they called it the Trump vaccine in the beginning, the Fox Newses and the OANs and that kind of thing, right? All the conservative, alternate reality of media sphere that's out there. They were very much like pro-vaccine when the vaccines first came around. Right around it was September, October of last year, right? Is right around when they first like announced that these vaccines are being made available for people, shit like that. And it was right around that time that they were all very pro-vaccine, and it didn't take very long because the right wing is in this country is filled with a bunch of insane people and crazies and conspiracy theorists and science deniers, people who have been saying shit like global warming is fake and that and the NWO is here to kill us and all that other stuff, and secret cabals of Jews run everything. That's like these types of people. It didn't take long for them to take over because those are the base. Those are the people that watch Fox News. Those are the people that vote for Donald Trump, right? And it's 30% of the country. That's the thing, is that it's like, you would think, okay, it's just a couple of crazies. That's what everybody thinks. Everybody thinks it's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. There's always going to be nutbags. There's always going to be crazy people, and you just have to ignore them and go on with your life. There are 30% of the Republican electorate are these crazies. Okay. Last year, all right, um, in December of 2020, right, after vaccines they were very much new on the scene, and they were only vaccinating people who were like 65 and older at that point, right? Um, you know something? We need to get rid of this blue underneath here. Okay. At that point, back then in December, there was a poll from the AP Norc, and this poll showed that only 47% of people in the country plan to get vaccinated, right? And what it was that a large number of people were wary of the vaccine because there was this perception that it was rushed. And full disclosure, I was one of them way back then, last year. I was, because it kind of seemed like it was. And so I'm not going to lie, I was somewhat skeptical. And, you know, it seemed like they pushed this thing through and, they didn't do enough testing. And to be honest, yeah, I will admit that the reason why I was skeptical is because I thought that Trump was pushing it through the FDA approval in order to get it out as soon as possible, and that there might not be adequate testing, right? And that was not, I wasn't the only one. According to this poll, it was 25% of the country thought that. Another 25% of the country said they would never get it, right? Ever. Well, a year's passed, right? It's now, it's almost 2 years later at this point. And right now, roughly 67% of Americans have gotten it, right? So all of those people who were skeptical, they all went and got the vaccinated, including me. I am fully vaccinated myself, right? And I don't think that was a bad thing to to suspect, because it sounds like something the Trump people would do, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It totally sounds like that's what they would do. Like they would say fudge it a little bit if, like, say some results came back like, oh yeah, you get it, but then, like, it makes you have flipper babies or some shit like that. Like, totally sounds like they would kind of brush that under the rug, doesn't it? But apparently no. And at this point, 200 million people just in this country have been vaccinated. And, you know, we aren't seeing rashes of flipper babies. People's arms and legs aren't falling off. It's not making your penis explode, nothing like that. So seems to be safe. And so those people who are skeptical have changed their minds and gotten vaccinated. And that's a perfectly normal, ordinary reaction, right? That 25% of people who said they would never get vaccinated still have not gotten vaccinated. So as of right now, it's 67%. So that leaves about 33%. So roughly the same. If anything, that number has increased, right? And yes, there are, legitimate reasons to not get vaccinated. Some people have immune deficiencies, autoimmune responses. Some people have, you know, um, pre-existing conditions that they can't do it if they get vaccinated. Their doctor tells them not to get vaccinated, right? That's fine. That's not 33% of the population. You know, that's that's a very much a low number. It's low enough to where it's not statistically significant. You know, the real reason why these 33% of people don't want to get vaccinated is because they're fucking conservatives, right? And they don't want to do it because the Democrats told them to do it. That's why. That's the only reason. And all of their friends and family, backing it up with ridiculous conspiracy theory horseshit that has no basis in fucking reality, and that's why they don't want to get it, right? And it makes perfect sense because people are now scared shitless, of what's in the vaccine because it's become mainstream to spread around, you know, misinformation, right? We're seeing that now. I don't know if you've tuned into Fox News lately. I know that to be healthy mentally, you probably avoid it, and that's a good thing. But it is a good idea to kind of tune in once in a while and see what the opposition is thinking. And it's just basically 24/7 vaccine mandate denialism, conspiracy theories, mask mandate like denialism. That's what it is on Fox News right now. Just every single story is either about a mask protest or how vaccines like really cause cancer or autism or some shit like that, or that it's all about freedom and blah blah blah, and the Biden administration is taking away your freedom, and if we don't do something, we're all going to end up in a worldwide version of fucking you know Soviet Russia or some shit like that. That's what it's all about, really. That's what everything that if you watch it, if you tune into it, you know, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, that's all they fucking talk about, right? On Fox is spreading around conspiracy theory bullshit and it's no wonder that it's become politicized. And then you see like, wait a minute, why is that? Oh, okay. Wait, is that like not the right color? Oh, all right. It looks like it should have been darker there, but that's okay. There we go. Um, that's what's going on right now, right? And so you wonder, like, well, that's why 33% of the goddamn population doesn't want to get vaccinated, doesn't want to wear a mask, doesn't want to take basic fucking precautions, right? And what's the reason for this, right? I think there's two reasons, really. The reasons why Fox News is like pushing, and it's Fox, it's OAN, the One American Network, just all of the basically the conservative media sphere, the alternate reality, the places where you get alternative facts from, right? They're all pushing this same bullshit. And like why? Why are they doing this? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, and the biggest reason is that they're making money hand over fist with it because they've cultivated an audience of, just outrage junkies. You know what I mean? That's what it is. They've cultivated this audience of people that want to tune into something so that they can bitch and moan and vent. It's like the 2 minutes hate, from 1984, where every morning fucking Winston Smith has to like watch this fucking thing and scream at Emmanuel Goldstein. That's what they're doing. It's basically the 2 minutes hate every fucking day at Fox News, right? So that's the first thing. They're making a boatload of cash off of it. Second thing is that it is something they can criticize the Biden people for, right? Because here's the thing, right? So far, the Biden administration has not gotten very much done. Not much at all, right? They passed a COVID stimulus and not anything else. So, they what they did do have not been actually executed rather well. They pulled out of Afghanistan. There's plenty of things to criticize them about there, even though ultimately leaving Afghanistan is the right choice. As far as I'm concerned, it was the right choice. And it should have been done 20 years ago. And forget the fact that they were actually just kind of following through with Donald Trump's plan that was in place for months and months and months. Forget all that shit, right? It's, according to the right wing, it's like, 100% his fault and shit. But they can't criticize that too closely because it was ultimately Donald Trump's plan. It was a plan put in place by the previous administration. So that's why they know they don't actually criticize if you watch, conservative media when it comes down to the Afghan withdrawal, they don't criticize the fact that he withdrew completely, right? They criticize the way in which he did it. And they don't do it too closely because they don't want their people to put two and two together and say, hey, this was Donald Trump's plan here, and what would have happened if Donald Trump was in charge and we withdrew from Afghanistan? How would it be different? And all of that shit. They don't want people to critically examine that, so they don't dump on them too hard for it, right? They lean more into the terrorism angle and like, oh, we shouldn't be taking refugees now and all this other shit like that. They're leaning into the racism essentially about it, but they're not criticizing the actual policy decision to leave Afghanistan in so much in itself because they can't, right? They also can't criticize his, economic plan so far, his COVID response so far, because he did what they want, which they've allowed, for example, the moratorium on evictions to expire, right? This is something the right wing has wanted all of last year, right? They're allowing the extra money for unemployment to expire, at least from federal on a federal level. There's still states like California, for example, still has extra money, so that's going to be a state by state thing. But they're allowing all this shit to expire because if you remember all of last year when people were locked down and Republicans were bitching and moaning about how nobody wants to work anymore and all this other shit because they're trying to blame the fucking, labor shortage on like these programs, which is bullshit. The real reason there's a labor shortage is because like people are sick and tired of fucking like being exploited. That's the real reason. And the real reason, you want to know why there's a labor shortage now? Because last year, when all the shit shut down, all the companies fucking laid everybody off, right? And now they're like, oh, come back. And people are saying, fuck you. I'm not coming back. You laid me off. What's changed? Am I going to make more money? No, then kiss my ass. I've been living. That's what people are saying. People are going, yeah, well, I lived so far for a year without working at this shitty retail job, right? And you can't go a year without working. Okay, first off, the unemployment wasn't enough, right? So anybody out there who thinks you're making more money, like if you're actually making more money from unemployment than you were from your job was a piece of shit. And so that's the first thing. So it's like, why go back to that fucking job then, right? Why not try to get a better job? And that's what people are doing. People are trying to get better jobs, right? They're, because that's what Republicans and conservatives always say, right? They always go, hey, if your job sucks, if you're not making enough money, these are jobs for teenagers, get a better job. Okay, that's what people are doing. It's capitalism. This is what's happening right now. It's capitalism, right? And it's just so happens that we're always used to the business owners being in charge when it comes to capitalism. Well, they're forgetting the other part of capitalism is the part where labor, right? Where labor gets to determine their own, they get to negotiate their own terms. Isn't that what like Republicans and shit always say? Right? Conservatives and Republicans and libertarians and shit, they always say, hey, people will if they don't make enough money, they'll just negotiate their for new wages, right? You know, And so that's exactly what's fucking happening right now. People are saying, fuck this, I'm not working at fucking like, Del Taco for, I don't know, what's the minimum wage now? What is it, like 750 or some shit like that? 825? Like, they're like, fuck that, I'm not doing that, You make more money driving an Uber or something, right? Or maybe they started their own business. Maybe they went to go work for somebody else. Maybe they got a better job some other fucking place. Maybe they don't need to work. Maybe they went back to school. Maybe they have, their parents or something, or their friends or their spouses can, support them. And at this part, and they said it might be better if I go back to school. That's another thing that always happens during an economic downturn is that college admissions go up because people go to get more training and schooling and shit. So no one's gonna go fucking work. That's another thing. Like for example, you have this shortages. Everybody's bitching and moaning about shortages, in the stores and stuff, and how there's empty shelves. Well, first off, right, it's not staple goods like, so much like food, right? Not so much. It's more like electronics and imported shit from China. Those are the things that, like, there are shortages of. There's shortages of fucking PlayStation 5s, that kind of thing. But if you go to a grocery store, there's still bread, there's still eggs, there's still milk. It's because we don't import that stuff from China, right? And it may be a little less because there's also a shortage of truckers as well, so because a lot of trucking companies laid fucking people off, and now like the truckers are like, you have to rehire those people. Takes a little while, and then some of them left the labor force. See, every time you do that, every time there's a layoff, some people just retire. They're old. Some people leave that labor. That it ends up reducing that labor force, and that's what happens. So now there's less truckers because they've gotten other jobs or they've left that field. So you can't just be like a year later, hey, everybody who was a trucker, here's your job, come back and work. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You have to find more people to fill these positions, right? Well, the best way to do that is to raise their wages. You know, if it actually like being a dock worker, if you could actually make a decent living at it, there'd be people lining up for it. Okay, because there's still tons of unemployed people out there who need jobs. There's always going to be people who need jobs, right? So that's what's going on right now. There's like, not enough workers at the docks in Los Angeles to unload all of these ships and things like that, right? And the reason why there's not enough workers is because people are not getting paid enough. Because these companies, by the way, that laid all these people off over the last year, it's not like any of them went out of business, right? No, they fucking made a shitload of money, right? And you're hearing that all over the place too. Like, whoa, why did that do that? Wait a minute, that shouldn't be doing that. What the fuck? Okay, I need to erase that. There we go. That was messing with me. Like over this last year, like Amazon, for example, has made billions and billions and billions of dollars over this last year. Um, so it's not like any of them went out of business. You're seeing all these strikes now all over the place too, like Frito-Lay and all this other shit. Frito-Lay didn't go out of fucking business last year, right? They made a shitload of money because they got rid of and they're running at skeleton crews right now, and they don't want to like increase the pay for their people. Like for example, the CEO of Frito-Lay made $30 million last year, right? And they like basically gave this package to the workers with like a fucking like, it was like a less than 5% increase or something like that, which is fucking ridiculous. And they voted it down and went on strike. They said, fuck that. The company's making money, the CEO's fucking like getting millions of dollars, and you're gonna try to fuck us over. So fuck you. Find someone else to make your fucking potato chips. Like we're going on strike, and it's like good, good. I hope they win. Anyway, kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there. But that's what's really going on here. This all does link back to misinformation. Sorry, went on a rant. But, this is what's happening. This is what the Fox Newses and stuff and the OANs and the conservative media have been trying to do for a long time, just to kind of bridge this back to my original point about criticizing Joe Biden, right? These are the things that they've been wanting all of last year for a long time. And they can't really criticize him for any of this because this is what they would do, right? The conservative response to these crises we're following, we have right now, is to do nothing, Let's keep that in mind too. That's the what's the conservative response to the labor shortage? Nothing, right? What's the conservative response to the pandemic? People not getting vaccinated? Do nothing. They don't have a response. So that's the other thing too. Their response is to just let whatever happens happens and fuck it as long as they get money, and don't raise taxes, right? Biden has a response. His response is this infrastructure plan, which would spend $3 trillion on everything that we need, everything from bridges to fucking high-speed internet, and healthcare and education and all that shit. Doesn't look like that's going to happen because of conservatives once again. Let's not forget that Joe Manchin, Christian Cinema, they're fucking conservatives. Um, you know, so like that's doesn't look like that's going to happen. But we don't. Are you seeing any kind of counter proposal from the Republicans, from the conservatives on their side? No, not seeing any kind of counter proposal at all. Not seeing any kind of you know any kind of proposal for legislation to get passed to address any of these problems whatsoever because they don't have solutions, at all. Conservatives, Republicans, you know, libertarian shit like that, they do not have solutions, right? Their solution is fucking give me tax cuts and fuck off. That's their fucking solution, right? So they can't criticize them for any of the shit that's happening because what's happening is exactly what they want. So they have to find other reasons. They have to come up with other bullshit fucking reasons why Joe Biden is bad, you know. And that's why you see shit in the news talking about how Joe Biden's dog bit somebody. That's why you see shit like that, you know what I mean? And just as kind of a side note, isn't it nice to have a president that like you remember how when Trump, the last 4 years, every single day there was just another news story about how Donald Trump is horrible, and it was just every fucking day. And it was either he was getting in a fight with some celebrity, today, you know, Donald Trump tweeted that Rosie O'Donnell's fat, or something like that. Like he would do some shit like that every day, or else he would get in a fight with a military Gold Star family, or else a story would come out that he was cheating on his wife when she was pregnant and all this other shit. Every fucking day. It wasn't just every week. It was every single day. There was some story either about how Donald Trump is a piece of shit, or how he's cheating on his taxes, or how he's fucking someone that he hired to be in the government is a fuck up, like Scaramucci. Anybody remember Scaramucci? How this dude comes in and just within a week he's gone, right? And it's who the fuck was this guy again? Or how one of his picks for energy secretary or something like that is a moron, or is you know getting sold out to big business, that kind of thing. It was just constant, 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 bad news of worst president ever type news, right? And now it's that we have a president where it'll be maybe once in a while, first off, the news now is just sort of when it's critical of Joe Biden, it's actual substance. You ever notice that? It's it'll be actual substance. Hey, Joe Biden's policy on the Haitian immigrants is resulting in people dying. You know what I mean? It'll be something like that, and it won't be some stupid shit oh, Joe Biden fucking cheated on his wife with a porn star and then paid his lawyer to cover it up and all this other thing. It's not these dumb shit scandal things. It's there's actual criticism that matters of the president now, and it's not every fucking day. It's I don't know. It's for 4 years we were just living in a fucking tabloid, wasn't it? And isn't it nice to actually get back to some real substance and the news? Oh, let's talk about policy now. That's one thing that's a thing that happens when you have that sort of tidal wave of ridiculous like um you know ridiculous fucking tabloid news cycles like that, like we did with Trump. It kind of obscures the important shit. You know what I mean? Like it obscured how basically he got nothing done and how he just cut taxes for rich people and like the racism in his fucking like immigration policies and shit like that. Like all of that shit got buried under just like tons and tons of personal scandals for Donald Trump's little scandals weekly, daily, sometimes even by the fucking hour. It was like, I don't know. It's nice to be able to actually get back to like some real fucking like, I don't know, some real like oh shit, that's too much. Nice to be able to get back to some real like substance when it comes to our political discourse. So kind of in a, sorry, another rant there. Sorry about that. Anyway, sorry. So, it's frustrating. I don't mean to be going on so many like side tangents and rants and shit in this episode, but fuck it, it's too late now. We've kind of gone off the rails already. Cat, hey man, thanks for joining. So, um, let's get back to a little bit of the substance of what we were talking about. Substance. Let's get back to some of the substance of what we were going to discuss in this stream, which was misinformation. All right, I'll try to keep it together, folks. I'm just you know it's frustrating, and I don't mean to be like ranting and raving like a lunatic here. So anyway, so yeah, that's the point. The point is people are scared shitless about vaccines because of misinformation, and it's an easy win for the right wing in this country to criticize the Biden and the Democrats for it, and their people eat this shit up because they cultivated this audience, right? These people, like, over the last 20 years of just misinformation about everything from climate change to immigration to war, to just basic fucking science, right? And make no mistake, right? This conspiracy shit is very, very prevalent. Ooh, I like that. I like how that looks, right? It's very prevalent because it's an industry. You know what I mean? Like the Alex Joneses of the world and the InfoWarses and the fucking, all of those people, very much an industry where they basically get money the more they scare people, right? The more they trade in outrage and paranoia, the more money they make. The more people go to their websites, the more people buy their books, watch their videos, they get ad revenue. They sell DVDs. Alex Jones sells fucking tons of DVDs, right? And that's where it comes from. And it's like you got to keep that gravy train going, you know. And all through the last decade and stuff, it was like, first it was Islamic terrorism, and then it became like fucking, um, after that it became like, social justice warriors, and it became BLM and Sandy Hook and all this other bullshit. And this is just the last little bit on the gravy train here. It's like now it's all anti-mask stuff, anti-vaxxers, and they're taking away your freedom and all this other shit because you have to wear a fucking mask when you like go to Ralph's for 5 minutes. Right? Your kid has to wear a mask when he's in school, so that he doesn't bring the fucking disease home and murder you with it, right? you know, like that's what's going on. Oh, you have to get vaccinated. Oh, fucking no. There must be like, devil mutants in the vaccine and shit. It's really just, I don't know. It's moved on from that because that's where it started. It started with the Alex Joneses, the Infowars, the natural newses pushing this anti-vax shit. The usual bullshit mongers were the ones that were pushing this anti-vax shit. And now it's become mainstream, you know. And it really, really took off also once there was that federal mandate, last month, right, where the Biden administration finally decided to stop, you know, pussyfooting around and started enacting some vaccine fucking mandates. What they should have done as soon as the fucking vaccine came out is when they should have done this. I don't know why they waited fucking like 10 months for it, but and Biden's vaccine is actually not that prevalent. It's not that pervasive. You know, it's actually like the minimum you could do for a vaccine mandate, right? Because his vaccine mandate is if you work for the government, you have to get vaccinated. That's fine. Or if you're a large company, then you have to get vaccinated if you have more than 100 people. Or you have to get tested, right? So first off, right there, there's an out right there. You can get it or you have to get tested, right? Now they have to put that out because you have people with medical reasons, and then there actually are people with religious reasons and shit like that, and Christian scientists or whatever, who don't get fucking vaccinated. So we have to like accommodate those people. But you notice in other countries on Earth, you know, they're not putting in these caveats. It's like, no, if is this your actual religion? It isn't, then you're not. Then you have to get vaccinated. Okay. Do you actually have a real legit like medical condition and not just one that you fucking made up? Then no, you have to get vaccinated. Right. Other countries on Earth aren't fucking like bullshitting with it the way we are, and we're doing it here because this is really all we can do in the country. This is like literally it. We'll never pass anything through Congress, right? You know, you might see some action on the state level in a couple of states, but even then, it's not like a state can just be like everybody must get vaccinated or you go to jail. You know what's happening in Australia? They have vaccine mandates in Australia, right? And there's no like provisions for bullshit. If you do not have a medical reason, you get it, right? And if you don't get it, you get fined $5,000. That's what's happening in Australia right now, right? Guess what's going to happen in Australia? People are going to get vaccinated, right? And this is why Australia has like 1,500 deaths from COVID-19, while we have 766,000 deaths. See, people don't understand this shit. It's like, right? And the reason why so many people have died in this country is because of vaccinations, because they don't want to get vaccinated because of misinformation, because it's become politicized. It's like this. It's so frustrating, man. You know, because that's the thing. It's like the government is not forcing people to quit their jobs. Like that's another thing that you're seeing right now, right? Is that there's all these exaggerated reports of people being fired from all these, fucking X number of teachers just got fired from New York, or all of these different nurses all quit. First off, it's a very small number, right? That's what's going on. It's no one's getting fired because you're not getting vaccinated, because there is the option to get tested. Okay, so if your company actually fires you because you don't want to get vaccinated, that's different. All right. Um, by the way, depending on what your industry is, they have the right to do that. So if you are, for example, a teacher and you work in a place where, children are, and, everybody knows children are a bunch of little germ factories that spread around disease like, they're fucking like Nurgle's minions and shit. I don't know if you guys know Warhammer, but Nurgle is the plague of chaos god in no Warhammer. Anyway, um, you know, so if you deal with that kind of thing, then yes, you should get vaccinated. You should be forced to be vaccinated. If you're a nurse and you work in a hospital where people who get COVID go when they get sick, you should be forced to get vaccinated. And it's not just for you, it's to protect everybody else as well, right? There's nothing wrong about that. And if you don't want to do it, then that's fine. Your company should have the right to fire you, right? It's different, right? If you work at Subway and you make sandwiches, right, and you don't want to get vaccinated, right, and there's 6 feet between you and the person ordering the sandwich, they got that sandwich bar, you got to stand back and shit like that, and everybody wears masks, that's different. And you're only there for 8 hours or something, that's different, right? You can get tested every week if you want to. Subway doesn't have to fire you for that. And that's what the vaccine mandate says. All right. That's what it says. So no, there's not, the people who are quitting, who are leaving, that's what should be happening, right? That's this working. And to be honest, if you're a nurse, for example, You don't want to get vaccinated, then your ass shouldn't be a nurse, right? Because obviously you fucking missed something when you went to nursing school, and you need to take that course about vaccines over again, right? Because if you're a fucking medical professional, if you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, and you don't want to get vaccinated, then get the fuck out. Then you're a shitty doctor, you're a shitty nurse, and you shouldn't be working around these people anyway, right? Seriously, fuck it, fuck these people. This is how we gotta, let's, we can't, the time for holding people's hands is over. Like one thing you always hear about radicalization, and all they always say, oh, it only just drives people to be more radicalized when you make fun of them and all that, right? I don't care. Fuck them. It's over. It's 2 years already. 2 years have passed, right? You should know this by now. If you don't know this by now, you're a moron and you shouldn't be around people, right? If you're a nurse and you don't want to get vaccinated, your ass should not be a nurse. Go work at Subway, right? I'm serious. I have no fucking sympathy for these people. If you're a doctor and you don't want to get vaccinated, fuck off. Fuck off. You're a bad doctor. Go back to medical school. Read that book. Take that course about vaccines again, because obviously you fucking slept through it, right? Bullshit. Fuck these people. So but you are free in this country to make that decision yourself. You are free to say, okay, you know, I'm not going to get vaccinated. I'll go do something else, right? Because this is America. And in America, we can't force people to do anything, right? We can only encourage people. We can't, in China, you can just basically show up and point a gun at somebody's head and say, get vaccinated or die, and they'll do it. North Korea, they can do that. We can't do that here. We have a Bill of Rights. It is your right to not get vaccinated. It is also not your right to, impose your dangerous status on everybody else, right? Your employer has a mandate actually to provide a safe working environment. And if getting rid of your ass means that's how they provide this working environment, then bye bye, right? And nothing wrong with that. If you don't like it, try suing. Good luck with that shit. You're gonna lose. Okay. So anyway, went off on another tangent there. Sorry guys, I will try to bottle the ends here. Ah, man. This kind of brings me, there's one thing that I did want to show here. I ran across this on one of the conspiracy theory subreddits on Reddit. And this is from Chick-fil-A. If you guys remember Chick-fil-A, chicken sandwich place, right? Actually, not bad. I only ate there once in my whole life, but I don't go there out of principle because it's run by conservative evangelical Christians who don't like gay people, right? Looks like Chick-fil-A has jumped on the anti-vax, bandwagon. Kind of hard to read that here because of the glare, but it says, we do not discriminate against unvaccinated religion, race, sex, vaccinated, maskless, mask. All neighbors are welcome, right? Trying to kind of put not wearing a mask and not getting vaccinated on the same level as your race, your religion, or your sex. Notice it doesn't say gender there. Yeah, they left that part off, right? Because, Chick-fil-A is very much does discriminate against people because of their gender and their sexual orientation, right? Notice they left that part off. But yeah, oh, your sex is fine. Yeah, we don't care if, your biological sex. You can spend your money here, but not if you're trans, not if you're gay. So, but that's what they're trying to do. And this is what you're seeing this a lot, just not, just in right-wing conspiracy circles in general. They're trying to equate your vaccine status with a protected class, like your religion or your race. It is illegal to discriminate against someone because of their religion or their race or their sex and their sexual orientation and gender, right? It is illegal to do that in this country. You can't fire somebody because they're black or they're a woman or they're trans or they're a Muslim, something like that, right? they're trying to get that they're trying to make that part of the public conversation, saying that yeah, the choice to vaccinate should also be protected. Fuck that. That's bullshit. All right, your vaccinated your your vaccination status is not a protected class. Suck my dick. No, right? This is what we got to. This is the kind of thing you got to fight against. This is basically the result of misinformation right here, and this sign and signs like it are going to get people killed because they're gonna, yeah, I'm not gonna get vaccinated, blah blah blah. Fuck that. It's my right. It's just like my religion, just like my race. You don't have a right to discriminate against me because of it. And then they're gonna catch COVID and they're gonna die, but not before they pass it on to five other fucking people. Some of those who may die, and the shit will just keep going forever and ever and ever. Right. Wanted to point that one out. That was a good one. Here, what is this? Getting back to the Hydra beast. So here's another comment that I found on Reddit for this was in another one. This was in a subreddit called Conspiracy Commons, which is sort of like a tryout subreddit before they allow you to post on our conspiracy now, because our conspiracy is completely taken over by like anti-vax people and like Holocaust deniers and other sort of far right, alt right, fucking banana sandwiches, insane people. Anyway, talking about the tentacled creature inside of the vaccines here. Excuse me. The parasite in the vials has been identified as a Hydra. You know, like the many-headed beast, only much smaller. This organism is immortal. It regenerates and has been used in mRNA research. It does not have a brain, but it does have a neural network. It's most likely what they're using to connect people to AI along with GO, which is genetically modified organism, genetically modified crops, GO, right? Watch second half of video if you don't take anti-parasitics every few months, then you need to start. Anti-parasitics here being, of course, ivermectin, right? So first off, there actually is a microscopic creature called a Hydra, right? It's like basically one step above bacteria, okay? It has no capability of controlling your mind or linking you up with any type of, AI or any shit like that, right? So that's one thing. Secondly, wasn't it supposed to be a microchip last year? When did that shit happen? Wasn't it supposed to be a microchip that Bill Gates was putting in the vaccine and like was going to use it to control your mind or something? When did they stop using microchips and start using Hydra like demons? When did that become a thing? Who made that decision? Right. Is there like a weekly meeting of the Illuminati or whatever where they just be like, the microchips are not really working that well, we need to step up our game here, and you, Johnson, I want you to take over the Hydra project, right? Is that how it works? Then like then Johnson has to go get his team and get the programmers together and be like, how the fuck are we gonna put these Hydra things inside the vaccine? This is stupid. And they have to like come up with a plan, and then there's a QA guy and there's a budget. Like, is that how it works? Right? Is there like, is it just like any other office out there? And then like you have to give progress reports and stuff, and there's a weekly meeting on Zoom call, and it's like, okay, this call has to go quick because I have to take my kid to the baseball game. Like, is that how like it's working here, or is it just like a bunch of like wizards and shit? Like, a satanic Anton LaVey kind of wizard guy with a shaved head and tattoos and like fucking like horns and shit going to the vaccine factory and just like waving a Harry Potter wand and shit and putting the demons inside the vaccines. Like, how does it work? Or is it just magic? Is it just magic? Do they just like sacrifice a chicken to like Satan while they play like Back Sabbath backwards and like fucking something like that? And then just suddenly there's just hydras inside of all of the vaccines. It's just Satan just makes it happen. Is that what happens? Like they have to like sacrifice like a fucking virgin for it or some shit like this. Like it doesn't. It's like fantasy. It's like the plot of a movie, right? It is literally the plot of a movie. It reminds me of, you ever see Halloween 3, Season of the Witch? kind of reminds me of that. Like that movie's actually really good if you haven't seen it. It's this evil corporation that like puts these masks, and then when kids watch a TV, like bugs and shit come out and eat their faces, that kind of thing. It's like it reminds me of some ridiculous horror movie plot like that. In fact, we should write that shit. I could probably sell that to Hollywood, make a fucking $1 million. You know, the fucking I don't know what would you call it. You know. Anyway, getting off on a tangent. Ah, fuck. Um, so that was one. Okay. Let's see. Blah 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 blah. And this has all just been very much. It's been mainstreamed now. You know what I mean? And we kind of saw this sort of starting like even like right way at the beginning. When like there was this pushback against masks and stuff, and like Donald Trump wouldn't wear a mask when he was president. He didn't wear a mask in public until April of last year, and it was because he thought it made him look weak. And so that's when you started seeing all the because if Donald Trump says it, then all the Republicans have to say it. It makes you look weak. Real men don't wear masks, blah blah blah. And then they made fun of Joe Biden for wearing a mask during the election and all that shit. You know. Then of course Donald Trump gets fucking COVID. That was funny. Too bad he survived. Right? I mean, God. But still, do they learn their lesson? Hey, here comes the president who was so strong because he wouldn't wear a mask and shit, you know, catches this deadly fucking disease. Do they learn from that mistake? Nope. Right? So that, like, it didn't take long. It didn't take long for that to happen. And then by July of last year, there were rallies where people were burning masks. Do you remember that shit? Right? It was just basically like fucking, they were like KKK rallies. Instead of burning books, they're burning masks. And all of this conspiracy crap just became like, just another fucking like thing for the white nationalists and shit to rail on about. And, that's another thing. Make no mistake, they're definitely using, like the alt-right, the white nationalists, the fucking racist people, Aryan nations and shit like that. They are most definitely using anti-mask, anti-vax sentiment as a recruiting tool because these people are opportunists and they use everything as a recruiting tool. And you know what what it was in the beginning when COVID first hit and the alt-right, like their reaction to it was spread it to minorities. That was their reaction, right? And there's like posts on fucking 4chan and shit where people are saying like, because a couple of news articles came out that said that minorities were more likely to die of COVID-19. Right. And the reason why they were more likely to die of it is because they over generally have crappier health insurance coverage. That's the reason why. So they would get it, and then they'd go to the doctor. They wouldn't have enough money to pay to go to the fucking doctor. So people, like people who don't have health insurance tend to not go to the doctor when they get sick because it costs an arm and a leg. And that's why you would see more black people, more Latinos dying of COVID-19. And the reaction from the alt-right, the fucking conservative Nazi types and shit was to get it on purpose and then go out and shake hands with a black man and spread it to him. That's what it was. Right? And, they've very much kind of adapted to this and used, these sort of anti-mask sentiments and stuff like that. They're using them as recruiting tools, They're emphasizing the freedom part. Oh, you have this is you being forced to wear a mask when you go into a grocery store is somehow infringing on your constitutional fucking rights. I don't see like in the Bill of Rights anywhere where it says that you have a right to fucking infect people and kill them, right? You know, that's not a right. You don't have a fucking right to do that. Oh wow, that looks like shit. Okay, we're just gonna clean that up just a little bit. Let's go here. My signature is all like, crappy. Uh, should change this to 21. So I originally did the line work for this in 2019. So, like I said before, 90% of what I draw never gets seen by anybody. So I just have like sketchbooks and sketchbooks full of stuff that maybe one day I'll get around to coloring if ever. I don't know. So this is one that I actually drew like 2 years ago. But there we go. We'll just update that to 21. Anyway, yeah, lots of misinformation out there, lots of, bullshit, Tucker Carlson and stuff like that, telling people not to wear masks, telling people to, call Child Protective Services if their kids wear masks. And, we did a stream on that. I'm sure you guys remember that thing. This has led to just all of these, like, angry people everywhere, going to, school board meetings and screaming and yelling and threatening people, shit like that. That's something you see all over the fucking place now, right? People getting threatened, people quitting, teachers and shit quitting because they're getting death threats, you know. Um, and this results in actual people dying, actual deaths, right? Here is a story about a guy in Maryland. Oh, wait, I don't have a link for it. Damn. Well, I don't know if you remember this, but just about 2 weeks ago, there was a story of a guy in Maryland who shot his brother, who was a pharmacist, and killed his brother's wife, and then one of their friends because she just happened to be there. And this guy's name was Jeffrey Burnham in Maryland. He's 46 years old in Cumberland, Maryland. His brother was a pharmacist, and Mr. Burnham wrote on social media that he believed his pharmacist brother was poisoning people with vaccines, right? And went out and blew him away and then killed his wife. And it's like, why would this guy think that? Who told him that vaccines were poisonous, right? Could it be, oh, I don't know, Fox News? Could it be Alex Jones? Could it, oh, wait, that's on the wrong, shit, that's on the wrong layer. That's okay. We can fix that. You know, this is what happens. This is what happens when conspiracy theories and misinformation and all of this shit goes out there and people like, have no other like narrative, right? Oh shit, wrong one. We want multiply. There we go. This is what happens, right? Is that, you know, someone who may be already slightly fuck, what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to merge down is what I want to do. There it goes. Okay. There we go. Now it's on the right track. And what is that? Oh, wait, did I just merge it down into the, okay, wait. I merged it into the same layer. So, no, that's the layer it should be in. Yeah, okay. So why does that look, it should be there. There we go. All right. There we go. Why? Yeah, okay, great. Anyway, let's continue here. Kind of lost track, sorry. Got a little distracted there. There's also been a lot of mask-related shootings going around all of last year. Um, I'm not gonna like open any of these articles up, but I'll just post them here if you guys want to check them out later. Here's one about a cashier shot and killed over a mask argument in Georgia. This was just in June of this year. Guy in Georgia went into a grocery store. They kicked him out because he wasn't wearing a mask. He got pissed, went out to his car, got his gun, came back in, blew the cashier away. That, unfortunately, is not the only one. Here's another link of another instance, and this is in Gardenia, California, where a guy was had a flat tire and was waiting for a tow truck and decides to go into a convenience store, and the clerk says, hey, you have to wear a mask, and they get in an argument, and then he goes out, gets his gun, and kills the clerk, right? There were a lot of these types of stories that I just, there's, and it would be kind of a waste of, to go through and look at every single one of them. But I'll just post a couple here. One of a bus driver who was murdered because he said somebody couldn't get on a bus without a mask. There's one for you guys there. Here's another one about a security guard at a high school basketball game who a dude came in and, told him to fucking, like, at a high school basketball game, told him to wear a mask. Guy goes outside, waits for the cop. The cop escorts him outside because it was an off-duty cop doing security. And guy blows him away there, you know. And there were a couple more. I'll probably just put it in the description after the stream finishes. But you're seeing this shit all over the country. Actual violence. You know, this is like, people, because people don't want to wear masks, right? Because, a store asked them to put on a mask, right? Or people don't want to get vaccinated and they're scared shitless because they think there's fucking tentacle demons in it. And so they're going and killing people that guy was a pharmacist, right? Like he distributes fucking medicine to people. That's an important job, right? And like, oh man, it's just so it's frustrating. It's frustrating to hear this, and then people like spread misinformation and bullshit, and they get away with it, and nothing happens to them. And so, like, do you remember a few weeks ago when YouTube finally got rid of like basically all anti-vax misinformation? Finally, they kicked all of those. So now, if you go on YouTube and you try to look up like anti-vax stuff, if you try to put up a video saying how there's tentacle monsters in the vaccine, it'll get kicked. It'll get flagged and kicked. Right. Finally, it's about time. I mean, this is why, and we've let it go on for so long, that it's gotten to this point where people are actually being murdered over it. And this is what happens. This is what happens when you allow misinformation to spread like this, unchallenged, is that it results in the deaths of actual people, right? And there's always those free speech people out there, people like Kyle Kalinske, for example, who like say that, hey, it's bad, you shouldn't do this, because the reason the rationale goes, well, if we censor these people, then the same company will censor you, right? Well, I don't really go for that. And the reason why is this. Okay. The company, like, for example, because what we're talking about censorship, number one, we're not talking about government censorship. All right. We're talking about a private company like YouTube. Let's just take YouTube as an example, right? Choosing to not allow anti-vax content on their platform, right? Let's just take this as an example of you know, this type of censorship. This basically what that is essentially self-censorship. The government is not forcing YouTube to do that, right? YouTube is doing this on their own because they've decided that it's a good business decision. That's why YouTube is doing it, right? Because enough people got pissed off, that YouTube said, hey, enough people are pissed that if we don't do this, they're going to stop coming to our platform. It's the same reason why they have this policy where you have to mark everything for kids and all this other shit, and why, like, because they had to cut down on, like, basically child exploitive content, because people were making these videos designed, they were basically making videos that were fooling the algorithm, and it was like, people dressed up as Spider-Man and Elsa from fucking Frozen and shit, and then sometimes they'd be engaging in inappropriate stuff, and it'd be a video flagged for YouTube or for children and stuff, and that's why they had to do that, right? That's also self-censorship, essentially, Um, anyway, yeah, the thing about that is that the company always had that ability, right? So when people say, hey, if we allow like a private company to self-censor like this, it's only a matter of time before they self-censor you, right? That's basically Kyle Kalinski's. If you ever watch Secular Talk with Kyle Kalinski, that's his take on this. Is that we shouldn't tolerate this because they will, you know, they will choose to censor voices like ours, progressive voices or whatever, right? And the reality is that they always had that ability to censor anybody for any reason, right? A private company has that ability. They can, for any reason, they don't have to give you a reason. They can just kick you, right? And as long as they can prove that it had nothing to do with your race or your religion or your gender or your sex, right? They can object to any kind of content they want, you know. And even, to be honest, some of that content regarding, those protected classes, really even those are not 100%, you know. You can still, for example, create a platform where you say no gay people allowed, right? And you can do it for a religious reason or something like that, right? And yeah, you might have grounds to sue them for that or something, but good luck. Try doing it, right? Watch what happens. Try suing let's say Getter. That's a conservative Twitter ripoff, or Donald Trump's new ripoff is called Truther, right? Or Truthy or something, Truth Out, some shit like that. The I don't know if you heard about that, the Twitter ripoff that Donald Trump just launched, and it crashed and burned in flames, right? It's kind of funny. It's called like Truth something like that, right? Try suing them. Try going on there and making like a pro-trans content. Watch how fast they ban you. Try suing them over that. Watch what's going to happen. Nothing. You're not going to be able to. You're not going to make any progress on that. Which sucks. It's bullshit, but it's the truth, right? That's what'll happen because you don't have really the ability to, dictate what a private company can do on their platform. They can do whatever they want, right? In de facto, do whatever they want. So that's the thing. The only way that you can really control this sort of thing is through, direct action, right? Um, Emailing YouTube, telling them how you're not going to watch them if they don't do X, Y, Z, right? Engaging, because I'll tell you one thing, right? Because I actually used to work for a marketing company, so I can tell you these. I can tell you at least this much is true. Okay, corporations pay attention to what people say. They do, right? When you go on Twitter and you say, "Hey, the new Coca-Cola flavor sucks," right? Like, let's say like Coca-Cola makes like raspberry Coke or something, right? And you go on Twitter and you say raspberry Coke is the most disgusting shit I've ever had. They listen to that. They have, bots that go and scrape Twitter and pull up all the comments, and then they rank those by, you know, positive and negative. There are companies that do this, right? They'll go through YouTube comments and they'll scrape out all the positive and negative YouTube comments and then make rankings, and then that's how they judge shit nowadays, right? It used to be just polls. It used to be you would just take a poll saying, "Hey, do you like this product or that product?" That's still around. That's still a thing, but it's very much kind of moving into these sort of like, you know, um, social media measurement type things, right? Because that's where people express their opinions, you know. So yeah, there's still polling. There's still like the usual kind of that kind of direct like market research, and but it's also, but they pay attention to this stuff. They pay attention to the comment section. So if nobody else is reading your argument flame war that you got in with somebody over whatever, how the new Dune movie sucks or something, right? The people that, the movie studio that made Dune is paying attention to it. Keep that in mind, right? So that's really the only way that you have to influence these companies is if they determine that this direction they're going, this policy they have is going to lose them money, they'll change it. That's good. So that's the only way that you have directly. The other way is to pass a law that says you have to do X, Y, Z. That's the other way. But, you know, so they always had that ability. They always have the ability to say, hey, if this content is making us lose money, then we're ditching it. And that's, so that this argument that it's not like we allow them to do anything. It's not like if we let them get away with censoring this, then they'll do it to us. It's like, no, they already could do it. And the only reason they don't is because they make money from us. Right. That's it. That's the actual truth. Um, anyway, kind of went off on another tangent. Fuck. so, so many times. Yeah, I watched, who's that? I watched Kyle often. Yeah, I love Kyle Quincy. He's great. He's got a really good views on lots of things. It's just this particular thing, I don't think he's right about it. And I understand. I understand the people who are very strict free speech advocates. Because it's part of the American, um, what it means to be an American is just to be able to say whatever you want, shit like that. But we'll talk about that after the stream when we get to comments. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about in our last half hour some conspiracy theories having to do with vaccines, because talking about misinformation and all that shit, let's actually discuss what some of that misinformation is, right? As we color in our pumpkins. Let's actually hang on. Let's take a break and look at. Let's see. Got some jack-o'-lanterns in the background. Maybe I'll put some stuff up here later. Maybe some tombstones or something. But kind of coming along pretty good, huh? Don't you think? All right. So let's move on. Let's color in our pumpkins back here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about vaccines. So the first conspiracy theory, of course, was the vaccine contains a microchip. Um, this actually predates, of course, COVID-19. This is a conspiracy theory from years and years ago, right? Kind of just a general anti-vax conspiracy theory, right? That it's going to have a vaccine, the vaccine, whatever, is going to have a chip, and they're going to use this chip to do something nefarious to you, right? So what the chip actually does, they never really say, you know. It either, let's move that down. Let's just merge that down. We don't need the blue anymore. I think we're sticking with the gray cloak. They never actually say what the vaccine chip is supposed to actually do. Some people say it just tracks you. That's one thing, which is like, well, why do you need a microchip to track people when everybody has a cell phone now? And your cell phone definitely tracks you, right? If you're worried about that kind of thing, your phone, in order to work properly, has to sync with the satellite, and every minute or so it sends out a little pulse that goes up to the satellite and says, hey, here I am. And that's actually why text messages can only be 128 characters, is because there's 128 bytes or bits or whatever in that little pulse that goes out to your satellite, right? And when you text somebody, it sort of piggybacks on that little signal, right? Which is bullshit, because if your phone plan charges you for text messages, that's 100% profit for them, because this is a signal that gets sent out anyway. So it literally costs the company nothing to send a text. So if you have like a phone plan where you're paying 10 cents for each text message or something like that, you're getting ripped off. Right. So yeah, don't need a chip to track people when they carry around a device that actually already tracks you. So what is it actually supposed to do? Another thing that people think it's supposed to do is that it's supposed to control your mind somehow. Bill Gates's fucking microchip. Which is also bullshit because a microchip cannot control your mind. There is no such thing as a mind controlling microchip. If you inject it into somebody's arm, how does it go to your brain? Are there little mini propellers on it? Are there nanobots or something? Right? Is that kind of thing? Or can it just like latch onto anything in your body? Right? What if it goes through your bloodstream and ends up in your digestive system and you shit the chip out? Does it still work? Are there like little hooks or something that it latches in that it doesn't make any sense? How does it get powered? Is there a little battery on the microchip? Is it using fucking like your bio, like, energy, like in the Matrix and shit? That actually is a thing that exists, by the way. There actually is electronics that can, use your own body's like metabolism in order to power it, but they're not microchip size, right? That shit is still in extremely early stages. And we're nowhere close to even being able to develop something like that. And then, how does it control your mind, right? Is there Wi-Fi on the chip? Like, is it piggybacking? Why is it just beaming signals? Like that's been a thing for decades too, where people think, oh, the Russians are beaming signals into my brain, and that's where the whole tinfoil hat, stereotype comes from people in the 50s putting like lining their hats with foil. This is an actual real thing. Okay. Like people used to do that. This is not, it became like a joke because it is a joke because it's stupid. But people in the 1950s and the 60s actually did like line their rooms with like aluminum foil and put it on the inside of their hats and shit because they were afraid of Russian signals being beamed down from satellites going into their brains and controlling their brains. That was an actual real conspiracy theory where people actually really did that after Sputnik because you got to remember the Russians first put up Sputnik. They had the very first satellite, you know, and people lost their minds when that happened, right? It was like everybody thought, oh, now they're going to have nuclear missiles up there on satellites and all this other shit, you know, and they're going to, and that's a thing that just for like all throughout the years, you'd get like people like mailing their congressmen and shit saying, yeah, the Russians are fucking like beaming TV signals into my brain and making me see shit, So this is just, that's another thing. It's like, this kind of shows that there's really nothing new when it comes to this stuff, right? It's all just the same conspiracy theory horseshit recycled over and over and over again. Okay? So, I don't know. I mean, and if you just think about it for half a second, it doesn't make any fucking sense. How does the chip get powered? How does it communicate? Is there a fucking little mini radar dish on it? Does it have an antenna? Right? How can they make that shit so small? Right? Does it have a hard drive on it? Right? Like I'm assuming there must be like a computer program on the microchip, right? Because a microchip by itself is not like a complete computer. It's just a chip that does a certain function. So is there like, a flash drive on it? Is it actually like a little mini tiny computer that can like get Wi-Fi signals and all that other stuff? What if you're out in the country and there's no Wi-Fi? If you're in like a shitty cell, you know, like what if you go in between cell towers? Does the chip just stop working? Suddenly you can think again? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's bullshit. Let's see. Another conspiracy theory is the vaccine alters your DNA conspiracy. This is, of course, comes from a misunderstanding of how these vaccines actually work because they're kind of a new thing. And what they do is they use mRNA, which is not the same thing as DNA, right? It's related, but it's not the same thing. Uses mRNA in order to have your body create spike proteins, right? And then that's the protein that the virus uses to basically latch onto, right? Like viruses are kind of amazing. If you've ever seen like those photos, like those electron microscope photos of viruses and shit, you know, They're like these little tiny spiky ball type things, and there's even some that actually look like monsters. It's kind of crazy, right? Raph, by the way, that would be a good like idea for a monster is to have like a giant virus that like became Godzilla sized or something, right? Anyway, um, I don't know if you're still in the chat there, Raph, but that'd be a cool idea for a monster. Um, so yeah, like, and what it is they have little hooks and things and spikes and like it'll be like a lock on the vaccine that like interacts with this spike or whatever, right? And so what it is that this causes, of course, your body to manufacture these spikes, and then your body creates, antibodies in order to fight that. And that's how they do it, right? But the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is just a normal, ordinary vaccine. It's just like, so that one doesn't even use mRNA. So what about that one? Is that one just like fine? Are you okay as long as you get the Johnson & Johnson one? Or are they like all like altering your DNA? Right. Doesn't make any sense. Another one that came out of this, another a sort of a sub conspiracy of this conspiracy, is the idea that if you get the vaccine, then you will shed the vaccine, and that was a thing that went around for a little while. So it was like this. The conspiracy theory is that you would actually spread the vaccine around, and so people actually started wearing masks for a little while, which was like ridiculous, but at least they were wearing masks, because they were afraid of catching this vaccine from people who were vaccinated, which is such fucking backwards ass ridiculous horseshit. It's mind blowing, and it just really shows how uneducated these people actually are. If you knew anything about just basic fucking science, you would know that this is bullshit, right? Basic science that you could get from reading like a New York Times article. You don't have to be a fucking scientist, right? You don't have to have a PhD in, fucking doctorate in virology or whatever in order to know this shit. It's like, high school science could explain this to you. And it just really goes, that's the other thing about, the anti-vax people is that they're really, really, really uneducated. They're extremely like, and that's part of becoming a conspiracy theorist is like, people believe conspiracy theories because it fills in gaps in their knowledge. They don't know how technology works. They don't know how microchips work. So what they go from is from like shit they see in movies and on TV and stuff. And it must be like, oh, you can just control somebody's brain like in the X-Files with a microchip. There's actually like an X-Files episode like that where Krychek like injects fucking Skinner with a microchip and can just kill him anytime he feels like. That's actually, X-Files was a great show if you've never seen it. Right. You know, so they see that shit and they think it's real because they don't know. They don't know because they're uneducated. And that's another thing that spreads conspiracy theories around is like such a poor, it's a really a criticism on the poor state of education in this country that people believe this obvious fucking bullshit. Uh, God damn. Anyway, another sub theory, of course, of the altering your DNA thing is that it's a plan to turn people into slaves. And this is essentially the conspiracy theory. You take this vaccine, it alters your DNA so that you become sort of like a slave race, right? And then when the shit hits the fan eventually and the New World Order people finally take over, we'll just be this compliant, slave race that does whatever they want. And as they're depopulating people and all that shit, as they decide who lives and dies and cart everybody off, you know, off on their cattle cars and over to slaughterhouses for being Christian or trying to ban abortion or whatever. As they're doing that, everybody will just be like, mindless zombies because they got this vaccine which altered their DNA and made them like, compliant. Which is also bullshit. And it's also a conspiracy theory which is older than COVID. This is what they were saying about fluoride way back in the day. One of the reasons against fluoride, because fluoridating water is a conspiracy theory that goes back. 60, 70 years at this point. One of the things about that was that fluoride supposedly makes people compliant, and it was just there to make the people compliant so the government could do whatever they wanted once the great replacement came around or whatever, right? So, just another thing. It's just all. See, that's the thing about conspiracy theories is that they just evolve. You know, when the things they predict don't happen, they just evolve, and somebody takes it and the theory becomes something else, and it's just the same shit recycled over and over and over again because people like fucking Alex Jones and all those other bullshit mongers don't really have much they're not really imaginative writers. They just recycle the same plots. It's kind of like when you watch Star Trek and you realize, hey, I'm watching Voyager, but this is a fucking plot from the original series. What the fuck? Right? Or it's kind of how like every Doctor Who episode is kind of the same thing. Like, I don't know. I love Doctor Who, don't get me wrong. I've actually kind of been into it recently, but I've noticed that every single Doctor Who episode is kind of like the exact same shit over and over and over, which doesn't make it bad. It's actually kind of good, but it's like, yeah, you know, got to diversify them plots a little bit. Anyway, moving on. Another one. Your immune system is better than the vaccine. This is some shit that you hear a lot. That your immune system is there for a reason, and you need to get viruses and stuff. You need to get sick in order to keep your immune system strong, and that's why you shouldn't get vaccinated. This is a fucking comedy routine from George Carlin. In one of George Carlin's comedy routines from the 90s, he went off on a big long thing about how he doesn't get infections because he doesn't take vaccinations, right? He also said that he eats food off the floor and doesn't wash his hands all the time, and that's why he never gets sick. Now, it's funny when George Carlin says it because it's a joke, but people take that shit and they think it's real life. And it's like you shouldn't be making medical decisions based on a fucking HBO special from 1996. Okay? I like George Carlin. He's funny. I actually have all of his specials on my hard drive, and I watch them all the time, right? But I'm not going to take medical advice from one of his fucking like comedy routines. And if George Carlin were alive today, he'd be telling these people to get fucking vaccinated. All right? Cuz it's an act, right? It was a fucking, you know, there were jokes. He was joking. All right? George Carlin was not a goddamn doctor. I don't understand people. Right? It's just ridiculous. Um, this is also a subset of this is that you'll hear people say shit like, well, the survival rate from the Rona is 98%, which is true. It is, right? But that doesn't change the fact that 700,000 people, 766,000 people, excuse me, have died of this disease in the United States alone, right? That tells you what is that percentage. What is that? 2% of what equals 700,000 people, right? That tells you how many people have caught it just in this country. Okay, I can't even begin. What is that? 30 million, 40 million, you know, something like that, right? 70 million. That's how many people have caught this shit, right? Here's the thing that this doesn't address either, is that even if you survive, there are long-term effects to COVID, right? There are people that lose their sense of taste and smell just permanently, gone. Never be able to smell or taste anything ever again, right? There are people who have permanent lung damage from this. And they're not just old. It's not just people who are like 60, 70, shit like that. These are people in their 30s, right? There are people that are, there are children who have died of it. I mean, it's been less than 1,000, thankfully, right? And the younger you are, you're more likely you are to survive, right? But this doesn't change the fact that, you could have permanent fucking damage and chronic illness for the rest of your life, right? You know, your immune system, no matter how fucking healthy it is, it's not going to help with that. People who can't walk up a flight of stairs now because they caught the Rona, right? That's one thing. It also doesn't change the fact that it could cost you thousands upon thousands of dollars to get treatment, right? For a while there, the government was actually paying for this shit, you know, but that's not going to last forever. And even like if, like, say you get Regeneron or whatever, the the antibodies, right, which are actually a very effective treatment and is saving thousands of lives. Even if you do get that, right, which that is being provided by the government for now, the government's not going to pay for your hospital stay, right? It's not going to pay for like all the other shit that you're provided while you were getting that. Yeah, maybe it pays for the medicine, but not for 3 weeks in a hospital. That can add up, man. So there's people that are like, even with insurance, are like getting out of the hospital with massive amounts of debt now. You know, 20, 30, $40,000 in fucking medical debt, right? When, after suffering for like 3 weeks and shit on like their deathbed and then getting out of it and then being permanently fucking like disabled for the rest of their lives. Do you want to risk that? Is that worth the risk? You know? Is that your healthy immune system defeating the evil Rona there? Or is that just you being a goddamn moron because you like, you know, believed Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson when they told you not to wear a mask and not get vaccinated? Right? Seriously, what the fuck, people? Oi, oi, oi. Last one, last conspiracy theory. It's part of the Great Reset, which I think we could do an entire just episode, maybe not a whole 2 hour stream on this, but maybe just like, you know, a 10 or 20 minute episode about this. This basically comes from a book that somebody wrote called The Great Reset, talking about how this is a perfect opportunity for us to, as a society, take stock of what's going on and the failures that our society, you know, has, and how we got caught with our pants down because of this pandemic. Because we did, right? All of the economic problems we're having now with supply chains and people not getting jobs and shit like that, and all of the people last year and people getting evicted from their houses, all that stuff. This is all shortcomings of capitalism, is what it is, you know. And this book was called The Great Reset, and it's about how now we can use this pandemic as an opportunity to address some of these inequities. Maybe provide a UBI for people, right? Maybe get some socialized medicine so that you don't go into like thousands of dollars worth of debt when you get sick. Stuff like that. The conspiracy theory right wing has gone nuts over this, and now, of course, they're treating this. They're using this label, the Great Reset, as just another label for the usual NWO sort of one world government conspiracy shit, where they think the entire world is going to be put into a massive worldwide version of Soviet, the Soviet Union, and they're going to take away all your guns, and they're going to murder you for being a Christian, and blah 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 blah. And the only way that we can, stop it is because hopefully Jesus will come back and like, outlaw abortion or something, right? That's really what it's turned into. So, which once again just goes to show that they're just recycling plots. This season of conspiracy theory now is very much just a recycle of last season's. Problem is, people keep fucking watching. Anyway, I had some more shit I wanted to talk about, like Rand Paul and some other things, but yeah, we'll get to that later. You know. Um, So yeah, folks, that's my message. Get vaccinated. Tell your friends to get vaccinated. Tell your relatives to get vaccinated. Push back when people spread conspiracy theories and lies because they will get people killed, you know, because this is what happens when you allow misinformation to get out there. It results in death. Actual people end up paying for this with their lives because so people like Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham can make money. That's what's going on here. And so that the Republicans can mess with George Biden, with ruin Joe Biden and prevent him from actually passing anything. It's all greed and money and power. And of course, we're the people who are actually suffering. Your friends, your relatives who are catching this disease and dying, they're the ones who are actually paying the real cost. Right. So let's read some comments. We're about, where are we at? 12:55. A lot of comments today. Right on, right on. Let's see here. Read some comments, read some comments. Let's see. Lewis the Hedgehog, they act like the world outside their bubble doesn't exist. And Shoma, excellent point. Yeah, that unfortunately is very much true. That is kind of a problem with American society in general. If it doesn't affect you, you don't pay attention to it, right? Unfortunately, I mean, I think that's not just American society, it's probably all societies. And the best you can do is, and that's the thing, is that you can't care about everything, unfortunately. It's not possible, you know. If you try to care about everything ever, you get burned out, and you get depressed because it'll look like nothing ever gets done. You know what I mean? If you try to if you try to just, devote your life to every cause that comes across that you believe in, you're going to be disappointed because you're not going to see any, you're not going to see a movement fast enough, right? And people tend to get disillusioned. And this is why, like, you'll see college kids when they're young and they're bright-eyed and do, and they have a lot of hope for the future. They become politically active for, you know, uh, right, because they read because basically, when you go to college, you read a book for the first time in your life, and you realize that, hey, the world isn't exactly what your parents told you, right? And a lot of college kids go out there and they become politically active, whichever way that, of the spectrum you believe in, right? And by the time you hit 30, 35, most people who are politically active when they were in college have kind of slowed down a little bit, right? And it's because the real world hits you. And, when you were an activist, when you were 21, going out there and marching and stuff like that, you actually thought you could change the world. When you're 41, you understand that no, you're not changing shit, right? Not like that. The way that when you learn a little bit about how the world actually works, you know, you become disillusioned. And that's really kind of a sad thing. Not everybody, of course. There's always people that hang on. I mean, shit, that's part of the reason why I do these streams. It's one little way that I think I can help change the world, right? But it's very much, you get less burnout, what I've in my opinion, if you focus on a particular, you know, subject. If you focus on a particular activism, you're an environmentalist, that's your main thing, and you go out and actually try to do something about it, volunteer your time, go out and do beach cleanups, stuff like that. You get way less burnout there, whether if you're like trying to do every cause ever and donate to every cause ever and go online and debate and yell at conservatives and shit for every fucking thing ever. You know, you'll get less burnout, you'll have better results, and you'll actually make more of a difference if you just sort of focus on one thing. And unfortunately, that's just kind of how it is. You have to choose something, choose something and run with it because you're not going to be able to fix everything ever, right? You're not going to be able to do it. And it doesn't matter if you have $1 billion and you never sleep, even then you won't, you know. So anyway, that is kind of just, I don't know, a shortcoming of not just our society, but maybe just the human race in general, right? Let's move on to another comment here. Thanks, Raph, for sticking for and Shoma. Thanks for coming by, man. Appreciate that. Lewis the Hedgehog. This vaccine conspiracy theory isn't even trying to be sane anymore. We can't put a microchip through a 25 gauge needle, but if only we could. Imagine what that would mean for medical science. Ever heard of nanotechnology? Yeah, and nanotechnology is a real thing. It's very much at the beginning stages. I read a couple of articles once, like there was some scientists who were trying to create little nanobots made out of molecules. And, they made like one that had a little propeller and it could float around and go from place to place. And the thing about it is that they don't have a way to control them, so your nanobot floats around, but they can't make it intelligent. And the real breakthrough will be when they can control it. Like if they could make like nanobots, for example, that could go through and target cancer cells, right? That would be like a major, major breakthrough. And I don't see that's probably not going to happen for a few decades. You know what I mean? Eventually, they may be able to. Eventually, they may be able to create some kind of thing that's microscopically small, that's like virus sized or bacteria sized or something. Or maybe they'll like be able to genetically engineer a virus or a bacteria that goes through and they can target a cancer cell with it. They can use it to reverse aging. They can, use it to, do stuff like that. Fix people's body parts. Go in and if you're blind for whatever reason, it could go in and clear out whatever blockage it is or something like that, or swap out the cells that are dead or whatever. Who knows? When that happens, human beings may become effectively immortal. Um, I don't see that happening in time and soon enough in order for me personally to become immortal, unfortunately. But it could happen. It could happen within the next 100, 200 years, maybe. That'll be kind of cool to see. That, of course, would open up a whole other can of worms, because then it becomes, well, everybody can't be immortal, so who wins, who gets it, and who doesn't, which, of course, it's going to be rich people. The people who can afford the nanoprobes are going to be the ones who get to live for, 1,000 years until they finally feel like dying or until the nanoprobes finally break down or whatever, who knows. There is no such thing as true immortality. You will eventually die, even if you do have microscopic cell repairing nanoprobes. But still, it would be nice to live for, say, I don't know, 500 years, wouldn't it? I'd sign up for that. Fuck it. That'd be great. Um, Moving on. Dynacat. They can put self-assembling microbots through the needle and they become a microchip once they're in the muscle. You mean like Voltron style? The robots go through and form feet and legs, you know form head and body and all form the head, kind of Voltron nanobots. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, no doubt it could, but here's another thing. Why does it have to go through a needle? Why not just have it be in a pill that you swallow if it just has to enter your bloodstream somehow, right? I mean, I don't know. I did see an article years and years ago. It was a parody kind of article, not like The Onion, but it wasn't The Onion, but it was something similar. And it was about a company that developed supposedly a rifle that could shoot a microchip into somebody, right? And they went to some convention, like some kind of like spy, like security sort of convention, and were showing off this rifle, which was bullshit. It was not true. It wasn't real. The idea was to see, they wanted to see if anybody would object to it, if anybody would say, hey, this is unethical, you know. Because the idea was like, what they were doing was saying, well, you can use this rifle to snipe a microchip into someone, and then you can like track where they are, and it's a great way to deal with protesters and shit like that. And the article basically said that no one objected to it, and that there were actually several companies who were very interested in the technology. And so it was sort of like they were trying to make an onion thing and pull a prank, and the prank sort of backfired. Right? I'll have to dig that up. I mean, this is from years ago. This is from like 2005 or some shit. So I'll have to like see if it's still out there somewhere. But it was interesting. Um, moving on. Moose the Hedgehog. I go off on tangents all the time too. Oh, thanks. Biden wearing a mask actually looked like a badass if he asked me. Yeah, I think he definitely won the narrative there. I think it had the opposite effect in my opinion. Like when Trump refused to wear a mask, and because it made him look weak. Like in my opinion, it made the fact that he wouldn't wear it is what made him look weak. But I know that a lot of his Trump people, his followers, will just do whatever the fuck he says. So of course, you know, they thought the shit, you know, they bought it hook, line, and sinker, of course. And for a long time, you had all these people saying like, "Take off that pussy mask" and all this other thing, and it's like, ugh, fucking ridiculous. Um, let's see here. I don't know, man. Conservatives believe the stupidest fucking shit. Seriously. Adversary Fandin. Hey, thanks for joining, man. Dennis Prager got COVID on purpose. I think he's lying. I read about that too. I think Dennis Prager is bullshitting. I think he caught it and is trying to spin it. Like, "Oh, I got this on purpose because I wanted to get my immune system strong." And I think he's bullshitting there and just using this as an excuse. Nobody gets fucking a disease like this on purpose. You know, seriously. Especially someone like Dennis Prager. What is he, like 78 at this point? It's actually dangerous for him to catch it. So that's why I don't think that he is telling the truth here, because this is something that even someone like him would understand how dangerous this shit is. I'm a firm believer that like people like Dennis Prager and stuff, these obvious grifters don't actually believe the shit they say. And I guess he believed it as far as the vaccines go, though, because apparently he wasn't vaccinated. But yeah, the fact that if he's claiming that he caught it on purpose, it's like I think he's spinning it in order to like try to make himself look tough or whatever. You know what I mean? Because that's like I think that's a bridge too far even for him, even for someone that like denies science or whatever. I think he's not stupid. That's the thing, right? People like Dennis Prager or Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson, those people, they're not dumb. They're actually very intelligent. I mean, that's how they're able to fucking like manipulate these people anyway. You know, it's just like sometimes you might get, I don't know, I think they might get what's the saying? Don't get high off your own supply, right? Don't believe your own hype, you know, and don't buy into your own bullshit. I think Dennis Prager is learning that, the hard way. Luckily for him, there is an effective treatment that rich people like him can get now. If he would have caught it a year ago, I'd say that he was in some serious fucking trouble, but he's probably going to survive it now. So anyway, all right, guys, that's it for us today. We're at the 1 o'clock mark, and I am hungry, so I need to go get some lunch. But here's where we're at. Did a pretty good job, don't you think? I think we're moving along pretty well. So I think we'll put maybe a few more pumpkins in the back, and then maybe up here we'll put like some tombstones or something up on the hill, and then like a moon behind it, so that it's all like evil and Halloween-like. Like this could be sort of like Jack Skellington in an alternate universe or something, where he became like an evil wizard. Leech. Is that the D&D monster for an undead wizard? Leech, Lick or whatever. I don't know how you pronounce that. Anyway, but yeah, time for us to end this, guys. Thank you all so much for sticking around. I really appreciate it. You guys are great. And time for me to do my ending speech here. So first I need to go to my ST shop. Let's go to etsy.com. And if you like what I do and you want to support me, you could please consider buying something from my ST shop. Here it is right here. I will put this down in the chat. I sell prints, I sell little sculptures, stuff like that. Kind of been selling a lot because of Halloween, so, if you want some evil-looking stuff to put up on your wall or whatever for your Halloween party, please consider buying something. If you like my artwork and you want to see more of that, you can check me out on DeviantArt here. I put up everything that I do, eventually on the site here. So here's our Smurfs versus Oompa Loompas thing that we did for the last, 6 or 7 streams. It all goes up on here, so if you want to check it out. And you could download all this stuff if you want for free. It's totally cool. If you still also don't want to buy something but want to do a recurring thing, I do have a Patreon. You can check me out here. Here is my Patreon. I actually do have like a couple of patrons, and thank you guys so much. Thank you, John, also my very first patron, for joining. Really appreciate that. Let's see, what else? I have another channel, UCD videos. So if you want to see me talk about toys and video games and other non-political stuff, I have my other YouTube channel, which is UCD videos. Mainly been doing a lot of toy reviews. I got one here for, this is for Madball from, the band Anthrax. They put out their own Madball. Stuff like that. So if you want to see me talk about non-political things, funny pop culture stuff, and mainly a lot of toys, I've been doing a lot of toy reviews, check me out on UCD videos there. I'm getting the feeling I'm missing something here. Am I missing something? Got that, I got that, got my artwork. Oh, well, anyway, I'm probably missing something, but whatever. Anyway, oh yeah, one more thing. I'm going to be at the, at Comic-Con in San Diego in, over the Thanksgiving weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that is, November, 26th, 27th, and 28th. I will be at San Diego Comic-Con. And I think I've got a table there. So I'll be selling stuff. So if you guys want to come and hang out with me, see me in person, whatever, and maybe buy something, we'll be in the Artist Alley there. So selling my prints, selling my comics, that kind of thing. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much. Really appreciate you all joining. And I think we're going to go ahead and end this. I will be back next week, Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you all so much once again. Thanks, Lewis the Hedgehog. Thank you, Nshoma, Dynacat, Adversary Fandin. You guys are the greatest. And I'll see you all next week. Adios.